The first sounds. For the rest of the programme, we're going to talk about how to have a good divorce. It's the first working Monday of the year, which often sees a rise in the number of couples seeking a split.
Yes, it could be that the stresses of the festive season have all proved a bit too much. Maybe the idea of new year, new you means going it alone's an appealing one.
It's got to be that, I think, hasn't it? That suddenly 12 months loom ahead and you want a fresh start. Is it possible to get through a family breakdown without it costing you both emotionally and financially? Of course, throwing the fact that there may be kids involved as well. Can you ever break up amicably? Well, with us, Claire Field, the author of the Parenting Apart programme and runs Claire Field Consultancy. Hello, Claire.
Hello.
The CEO of the Divorce Hotel International in the Netherlands, Jim Halfens. Hello, Jim.
Hi, Tony.
Hi, and James Maguire is with us as well, Director of Maguire Family Law, where he specialises in divorce law. Hello, James.
Good evening.
We're going to speak to a couple of listeners as well along the way. Claire, first of all, though, that simple question, can any divorce be amicable?
Well, I think it's just down to the individuals and obviously to the family dynamics, but we're certainly trying to put as much resource in place to certainly help that initial break be as probably as supportive as possible, especially when children are involved.
From stories I've heard in the past, Claire, often I think couples set off thinking we can do this amicably, and then as the process begins, it becomes more bitter, and that is one of the difficulties.
Yes, well, I think it's just the dynamics, because until you actually go through family breakdown, and certainly from my own experience, hence why I've certainly put together the Parenting Apart programme, is that I just think even as adults, we all need some help and we need some support, certainly when times are so difficult. And one of the biggest things we find with parents is that once they lose the respect to communicate, and certainly to communicate about the children, that's when tensions really do rise, and unfortunately that's when it impacts on the emotional well-being of children.
So what is foremost here, that the parents who are splitting up ought to put the children first and make sure that their lines of communication are open?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's probably sometimes one of the last things they really think of, because again, when you're in heightened emotional state, and certainly from a personal relationship, we do find that parents can lose track of how to parent and to keep that consistency there for the children, because the children still, regardless, you're mom and dad to them. And, you know, even if we're not really liking dad at the moment or liking mom, for the children, warts and all, they love you both, and they still need you as much.
Yeah. We're going to speak to Jim in just a second about this novel idea of a divorce hotel, where couples get together in separate rooms, I may add, to at least communicate about the divorce. But Claire, how easy or otherwise is it to keep that line of communication open between the kind of divorcing couple?
Well, we're finding through research and some of the statistics coming out that unfortunately it's probably much harder than we anticipate, hence why we're putting resources in, certainly through the Parenting Apart programme that I run, and that is exactly to bring parents together, to actually support them, to look at transforming from a very personal, intimate relationship into a good, respectful parent-working relationship. And that's about them being able to plan and to look at the children's needs, certainly when they're going to be having two homes and the transition of going from mom and dad's home. And also for parents to understand that, you know, by separating, you also lose a lot of time with that child or children, which can be another part of a mourning process, which is very hard sometimes for parents to adjust to. But then we have to look at where the children are.
So Jim, listening into that, you run the Divorce Hotel in the Netherlands. Assume me and my colleague here, Anna, have been married, I don't know, 10, 15 years. We've had a nice life.
Go on as if we have.
For a moment or two, but suddenly it's all gone wrong. So we're checking into the Divorce Hotel. What do you say? How does it work?
It's not only in the Netherlands, it's also in the UK, and it's even also in the United States in the meanwhile. But first of all, it's not for everybody. And I hear Claire talking about several cases who are very complicated. And of course, we do an intake conversation first to decide if you are suitable to get into the hotel. And what's the criteria? If you are suitable, you are able to wish each other a bright new future. If you are able to do that, we welcome you. We do some checking some facts and everything, a lot of pre-preparation, and then you go into the divorce hotel. So we decide if you are suitable or not. But if we allow you to go in, we have a success rate of above 95%. You go in, you have a weekend, and you leave the hotel divorced.
So you go in and what? There's some level of mediation, is there?
The thing is, we started with the sort of new idea. It's all based on mediation, which is not new at all. But the thing which is new is that we take couples to neutral grounds, because we think that all the influences from outside, and everybody has an opinion about it. And Tony, I agree with you. What you mentioned, very often it starts very positive. And let's be honest, in a lot of cases, it's necessary that everybody has his own lawyer. It's complicated and difficult because the couples are not able to wish each other a bright new future. But if you are, we can do it in 2 days without any problems.
Jim, just for now, before we bring in some listeners and bring in James Maguire as well, is it easier to mediate in a divorce situation where both parties maybe admit that the marriage is just broken up, it's, they're fallen out of love, rather than a blame scenario, i.e. maybe someone's had an affair or something like that? Is there an easier scenario to deal with?
Yeah, in terms of, I think every scenario should be looked at very critically. But what you mentioned, there is already another partner and everything. And what I think and what I see, and that's the reason that we work internationally, it's everywhere the same. It's very often based on hourly fees of a lot of lawyers. And of course, it's not a very bad idea that it takes longer. That we do it in a faster period. We do that for a fixed fee, and that makes it a sort of positive, efficient pressure cooker. You need to get along within that weekend. And yes, we take care that everybody will. It's only the couple. They have to behave as adults. They have 2 days, and they need to come to a solution. If they don't come to a solution, then they fall back into a traditional process, and it can take months, weeks, or maybe years.
Carl's texted in just a poetic treatment of this scenario. When two people part without acrimony and remain friends, then I, for one, do not hesitate to suggest love has a lot to do with this. If you truly love someone, you must remember this: one can own one's own feelings, but never own the feelings of the other. Sometimes, alas, love is letting go.
Sometimes it is. Joe is in West London. Hello, Joe.
Hi there.
Hi. It sounds like in your case, it was love for yourself, really, that led to the letting go.
Yeah, and my kids, really. So when things got as bad as they did and friends weren't coming around to our house anymore, we tried to relate, but we were banished from relate because of the aggressive behaviour of my ex. So, yeah, sometimes you just have to think, I've done everything I can, and for my sanity, my health of my kids, you have to make that really sad decision. But actually, it's often in those circumstances the most healthiest. And even though you try and do everything you can for your children for it not to happen, sometimes, unfortunately, you just have to face that and deal with it as positively as you can, even though the other person is incredibly difficult about it.
Yeah. I know you said, Joe, that you went to relate and it didn't work out, but before you took that step, did you think that it could be saved? Or once you'd made that decision, was it a question of going through the motions?
I hoped it could be, but there needed to be such a change in behaviour when we're talking about aggression and abuse. So that person needs to recognise that behaviour and then change it. I want to change it. So I hoped that might happen. My children my twins were very young. They were only 2. So they were very young when we split up. And I really didn't want it to happen. So I did everything I could. But unfortunately, it does get to a point when you just have to, sadly, make that best decision. Yeah.
And how was the process of the actual divorce, Joe, for you? How did you find it?
Traumatic. It was hideous. I think the things that make it very hard is how the people you think are going to be there supporting you actually turn against you. My own family turned against me. Some of my friends were amazing. Some of them turned against me. So sadly, all that sort of gets thrown into the pot of you having to deal with this incredibly sad and difficult situation and emotional. You're also trying to think the best for your children, finding, as a mum, I'd given up my job to have my children, so I had no income and I had no money at all. So it just adds even more stress. But one of the most stressful things you can do as a woman is I had to leave the marital home, otherwise I was scared for my health and my safety. And if I hadn't have done, I don't know what would have happened. Well, I know what happened because it was threatened to me. But you know, you just have to make that leap of faith, even though you have nothing. you just have to do it.
Where did your support come from then, Jo?
Friends, and eventually the government, thankfully. Initially nothing. I just had one long distance relative that gave me some money. I had a bit of savings, and then that quickly went. And I just, it was very much a self-driven. I had to just dig deep, really. And my friends were amazing. My friends became my family, without doubt, in that very short time.
James Maguire, you're listening to all of that there, and actually what Jo went through is lots of different reasons actually that might stop somebody taking that step of divorce. I mean, she talks about all of the things that you feel like you're getting thrown at you. It's not an easy decision to make.
Not at all, no. And sadly, in Jo's situation, it's what we see almost every day of the week. Some situations are more straightforward than others, but obviously here we've got a wife, mother with 2 very young children. There are safety, security issues, and having to make a very, very difficult decision in terms of where am I going to live, how am I going to live, how am I going to support myself and the children. And I think Jo's done very well to almost detach herself to focus on the children as a priority, the safety issues, and look at a way forward for herself.
Yeah, I mean, from a financial point of view, and if you are in that position where you want to get a divorce, but you haven't got anywhere to go, and you don't have an income. I mean, is there any help, any support out there, or is your ability to get divorced in that case just restricted?
Sometimes people feel that they're frozen. The government have effectively done away with legal aid in certain situations, for example, where there is domestic violence and subject to income and asset levels. Legal aid is still available, so effectively free legal advice to a point. But for a lot of people, they don't qualify. And there may not be the violence whereby there's a criminal record or report to the police. It's just that they haven't reported it. There are powers of the court for protective orders. The court also has powers to make interim maintenance, to provide support. On occasions, people have to work, even if that's part-time, to claim available benefits, tax credits. The Citizens Advice Bureau have all sorts of information available to people, and they're very good at providing that.
Yeah. Jo,
I'd just love to make a point there. That's all well and good, but to be honest, at a point, certainly I work, all of that is in the distant future. When you're in that situation, every minute, every hour, every day counts. So actually, all of that is, you're not really thinking about the divorce process and legal aid. You're actually thinking, how can I move out of this house safely and live somewhere? And I think the system could be better. So my husband has the child benefit in his name, so I couldn't even claim for anything.
Yeah, in fact, I've seen that talked about a lot, and that can often be a lifeline for women, can't it? That income that can be coming to you and you alone.
Absolutely, and you need something there, and then you need a chunk of money, even if it's just a few hundred quid. You need something to make that step and say, right, I can move into a B&B. Some women, I think, sadly, this is why a lot of women actually don't leave a situation, because they literally have nothing. The husband controls all the finances, which is very, very common. And if they're refusing to give you a single penny when you leave that house, and it's your decision so tough, you need something, and I think that could be definitely improved, that there is a pot that women, particularly, but men that are abused as well, can dip into and say, right, okay, I desperately need something now to get me out of this situation. I know there are charities that help.
I noticed, Jo, that on your message, we talk about can you have a happy divorce, but in your case, you said that you were, the divorce wasn't happy, but you're happy now because you went through that step, because you made a better life for yourself.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my life has gone onwards and upwards. It really has. And I've got my own business now. We're incredibly happy as a family of three. And I absolutely, and he is happier too. So that's the other side of it. But if I hadn't made that decision, I would have stayed in that oppressed relationship and struggled. The children would have suffered. So there's no regrets for me. I've really kind of, you realise afterwards what impact what abuse has. At the time you don't realise it. Afterwards you suddenly see what a different person I've become.
Yeah. Jo, could I ask a question? Do the children still see their father?
Sadly not anymore, no.
No.
No, they did for a while, but not anymore. We've been to court a few times now.
Joe, it sounds like it's been a really difficult time, but I'm glad to hear that you've come out of it feeling stronger and better. So thank you so much for coming on and talk about it. Really appreciate it.
Take care. Pleasure. And I'm writing a book about it because I think, that women in my situation need to see another side, and that there is hope, and you've got to keep positive and believe in yourself. That's all you've got to do.
Yeah, it's a good story to share. Take care, Joe. Thanks again.
Okay.
Thanks,
Bye.
Joe. Bye. It's Joe Weston.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joe. Joe got through it in her own way. Let's have the flip side of that. We've talked about whether you can ever have a happy divorce. Ian's on the line from Coventry. Hello, Ian.
Good evening.
Now, Ian, I know you went through a divorce 10 years ago. What happened to you? What was your experience?
Well, like I said to your producer, I thought I was happily married. And then I got some good advice from a friend a long time ago who said, when a woman makes up her mind, you cannot change it. And then when she asked for a divorce, I tried to change it, but I couldn't, because she wouldn't have. And it just went from there.
But how was the divorce process? How amicable was it, Ian?
Oh, it was very amicable, because I didn't have to do anything. All I had to do was sign the papers. The ex-wife did all the hard work.
Yeah. So what?
Yeah.
But I can feel a tinge of bitterness there, and and that's got to be there all the time. I think in the case of divorce, hasn't it? Particularly if you think you were the wronged person. But what about your family? I know you've got 2 sons. Where did they factor in all the discussions?
Where did they factor? They were very young at the time. They were like 7 and 5. I had access to them all the time. They stayed with me every couple of weeks.
You still see them now, Ian?
Yes, all the time, yeah.
Yeah. And what about, and so we're saying you had an amicable divorce. Was that the case? I mean, do you still talk to your wife at all now? Has she got on with her life?
Oh, yeah, we've both got on our own lives, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I still speak to her, yeah.
All right.
We in fact live in the same street.
Oh, blimey.
Yeah. And I'm in the building trade. I still have to do the odd job for her.
All right. Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. Well, I know a few couples who are like that, actually. Ian, good to talk to you, Ian Watson there from Coventry. James, do you get people who find a way through it like that?
Yeah, most people, in fairness, they recognise, that the marriage is broken down, and they take responsibility rather than blame. And I think, as at the start of this, a lot of it's about communication. If parties can communicate, can facilitate it in different ways, whether mediation themselves, family, lawyers, they will pave a way and navigate themselves out of this.
Claire, just very briefly, because we're coming to the end of the programme, 30 seconds left. Is that true? Are you always better in a divorce situation to talk rather than walk away? Does it always pay to do that?
Absolutely. Communication is the heart of what children desperately need to protect their emotional well-being. If they see parents still being able to talk and talk about them and to plan, then we can make sure that the children are going to be all right.
Claire, thanks for talking to us today. James, thank you. Thanks for coming in. And thanks to Jim as well from Divorce Hotel.
Yeah, thanks to our callers. Thanks for all of your messages as well, as always. We'll see you tomorrow. Here's Kelly.
Anna, thank you very much, and welcome to the Amex Stadium as Crystal Palace are the visitors to Brighton.
I don't know how you do this. I really don't. It didn't do it. Honestly, I could cry.